All right, 7:05, and we'll start today's meeting, April 15th. Got a relatively full agenda. And we'll start if there's are there any general announcements? I'm not seeing any public members of the public on the call this morning, Dave. Is that correct?
Yeah, members of the public. I don't think so.
Okay. Sounds good. Then I will I do have an update on the bench, and so we will hopefully get to that in other business. I definitely want to leave time at the end of the meeting so that we can get
It's
to it.
important.
Yeah. Kim's not here today. She is leaving early for April break, so I think this is gonna be us unless Eric arrives.
Yeah, Eric said he's not gonna be here.
Oh, okay.
I texted him and told him I was gonna be late in hopes he could relay a message, and he says, I'm actually not gonna be here again.
Well, Reed, if your version of late is 7:05, then I guess you're right on time.
I'll try.
Yeah, no, okay, so open up the minutes and we can do a quick minutes review.
Yes.
I did not have any comments on this, so anyone that's flagged something to date, can jump right in, otherwise we can just kind of slowly scroll through.
I read it, and the only thing I had was I just wanted to make sure that on the number 4 conservation planner update, Old Creamery Road clearing, that the land clearing was at 0 Old Creamery Road. Is
That is the,
that's the,
as far as I know, yeah, that's.
yeah, because it's right there on the corner.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, there's no mailing address, right? So
right.
right.
approximately 0.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't know if that were a buildable lot and a house would go up, would they add a number or change the number, but it's marked as 0 Old Creamery for now.
That's interesting.
It's a small town, we can add a number if we need to.
To accept the minutes as written, unless somebody else has something.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Laura, thank you, Kim, sorry, not Kim, Lynn. Can we have a motion, or we have the motion to approve the minutes, so moved, all in favor? Aye.
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 All right, for all, minutes approved. We can move on to our next topic on the agenda. Dave, I did want to ask a question. We have 8:20 as identified for the Marcotte subdivision. I'm assuming that Arrowwood will
Yes,
be here at that hour.
yes, Aaron Worthley will be joining us online. And I invited the applicant, but haven't heard back, so I don't know if they're gonna tune in.
All right, and I did not see a staff report for that one.
Correct.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess I can clarify in advance, so really this is just based on your schedule and the biologist schedule, it made more sense to have a quick informational session with Aaron. So you can do Q&A, having taken a look at the habitat disturbance assessment. There's no staff report. It's not a hearing. There won't be any assessment of compliance with the bylaws. It's really just to make sure that you have your questions answered. You understand the HTA, what the key findings were, what the recommendations are. And then on May 6th, you'll do the Conservation Commission review of that application. And that'll move more efficiently because you'll have that out of the way.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Breaking it up, got it.
All right, then let's move on to conservation planner updates. There's quite a lot there.
Great, yeah, so jump right in, try to fill the 10 minutes without going over. So first is just a quick update. So we posted 2 and a bit weeks ago for the conservation lands and trails steward position. And that we got 33 applications. I haven't posted for this position before, and we haven't in a while because Ian has been recurring. But it seems like very robust engagement to me. Certainly made my job more challenging, sorting through applications.
Yeah.
Interest.
Kind of sounds familiar from when we first hired Anne. I think it was a decent number of
Okay.
applications, yeah.
Interest definitely skewed towards younger side with a lot of interest coming from current UVM students, early career graduates, and some from other demographics, early career, mid-career, some retired. So it was great to see some breadth there and some interesting candidates. So we've made some selections, and we're bringing in some people to interview this week. We've already interviewed one last week. And I hope to have the hiring process wrapped up by the 27th at the latest.
Great. What is the availability of the applicants? Is it for mostly people looking for like full-time for the summer or part-time?
So it's just based on what we can provide. You know, we posted for seasonal part-time and I calculated that we were approved up to 270 hours at a rate of $22.10 an hour. And
So that could be like a shorter schedule with more hours per day.
exactly.
Or it could be a longer schedule with a few hours per day.
It's fairly flexible, and that's really the only benefit that we can offer for this position. So the way that the main way that I'm envisioning this job is hopefully we'll have somebody who from the beginning of or the end of May to either the middle of August or maybe the middle of September, depending on their availability, can be putting in 15 to 20 hours a week. There might be a break in the middle if there's some travel plans. But there's flexibility there to accommodate if somebody's a great fit for this position and has some other needs. It could be a little less regular. It could be more direct or more concentrated in one season. But definitely somebody who's able to be a presence throughout the main bulk of the summer. I'm hoping that this position will be able to grow over time. And we can win a little more funding for it in future years.
Great.
So that's a quick update there. All right, next update is we had interest from a UVM group, wildlife biology student group and their instructor. And to deploy trail cameras at Mud Pond. So I took a quick look through the guiding documents there. And educational use of Mud Pond Conservation Area is listed as one of the highest priorities and best uses of that land. And there's no policy on trail cameras. So I said it's you have my approval for that, but I thought that would be a good thing to queue up as a conversation with the CC especially as we're thinking about updating management plans for Mud Pond Conservation or Country Park next door. Is the last time all these plans were written, trail cameras and a policy around that wasn't really on the table. So I think that'll be a good thing to think about. The Conservation Commission wants to have a general policy around
Capturing photographs.
yeah, wildlife study using trail cameras. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they find out. And they're specifically hoping to capture a sign of bear. Black bear.
So it's definitely black bear there.
Yeah.
So it will be up for the
spring? Yeah, great question. Just up through April 30th.
Oh, okay. So just very short window.
So yeah, short term in terms of the student project, and then the instructor said if the Conservation Commission is interested, then she can probably leave the cameras up for longer if it seemed like they were productive and they were leading to interesting signs.
So is she downloading them remotely?
No, I think they have to go out there
Yeah.
periodically and check.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Great. All right, so next is just a quick update that spring is here, and so our annual volunteer activities around spring activities are kicking off. At Catamount, there is a whole bunch of volunteer activities around bird monitoring. And the Catamount committee is up on that, but I figured this is the Conservation Commission should be aware of those activities too. So quick update on what goes out there at Catamount. Reed Parker runs a duck box specifically wood ducks, so wood duck nesting monitoring, and maintains 2 boxes at Mud Pond Conservation Area, 4 boxes at Catamount, and checks them weekly, counts the number of eggs, all of that. Last year there was, I think all 4 boxes at Catamount were occupied. And it was the first year
Wow.
that one of the boxes at Mud Pond Conservation Area was occupied, although I don't know if that one was successful. So it's been really cool to see that project grow and the local birds taking notice. And this year, Reed decided that he's used to do all this pretty much by himself, and it was getting to be a lot, and he wanted to bring in some assistance. So you may have seen he posted on the Front Porch Forum and got a bunch of interest from the community. I think 11 people responded, and
That's great.
he took as many volunteers as he thought he could manage for this season.
Mhm.
So brought on 4 people to learn about the boxes and system like that. And
Cool.
yeah, that's going. And then Terry Marin's Nest Watch project maintains, I want to say, upwards of 40 to 50 nest boxes at Catamount. And those are smaller nest boxes for eastern bluebird and tree swallows, and primarily they get occupied by house wrens too, but that's not the intention. And so that project, those are monitored weekly and reported to Cornell Nest Watch, the same program that Reed reports his information to. And I think they're planning on getting started in early May. Although I've heard some reports that the tree swallows already started to come back, which is exciting. So that all happens out there. And the other one, which is more informal, or rather, it's a weekly bird monitoring, but there's no infrastructure. We don't waiver it or anything like that. It is a group that walks around the bobolink field out there and monitors for signs of nesting bobolinks. And they've been doing that since, I want to say, the late 90s, which is really exciting. So they've continued to go out there and keep track of the signage.
The bubbling wanderers.
Yes, that'd be nice. Nice name. And they've received support or been involved with Green Mountain Audubon over the years, and last year we're involved with working with the family that farms that land, hays that land, to tweak the farming schedule slightly, so that the mowing schedule can accommodate the breeding season for the birds better.
Is that the far eastern field?
Yep. Yeah, the far eastern one, right adjacent to River Cup Farm.
Okay.
Eastern. Getting myself oriented. Okay.
All right, so then next thing is just 2 other quick things. Is one, it also this time of year would be vernal pool monitoring season. We don't have a vernal pool monitoring program in town. It's something that I would love to see grow up over time. We've got a number of vernal pools locations that are tucked into our natural resource assessments that were described back in the 90s, but they're not on the map. We haven't kept track of them or confirmed them lately. So
we saw that one over in Allenbrook, when I showed you that walk over to the bridge.
yeah,
That was like a huge section of vernal pools.
yeah, that's right. I remember. Yeah, there's some things like that aren't even on our map yet.
Yeah.
So just kind of something to keep in mind. I think it would be really neat to find some members of the community that might be interested in vernal pools. We have bunched out Lake Iroquois watershed. There's
Five
at
Tree Hill
Five
has,
Tree Hill.
Oh.
There may be one at Brown on Mountain. So there's a bunch of them around town, and we just
There's a
don't have
lot
a
of
very
activity too. to monitor.
comprehensive
Yeah.
catalog. So I bring it up just as kind of putting your awareness. And then also, if anyone is looking for something to do early season and wants to get out in one of our natural areas, I can share some information with you and flag a candidate if you want to go walk out there and look for signs of amphibians. All right, and very last thing is I was contacted by a community member, Randy Becker, whose child and her family is interested in sponsoring a little free library at the entrance to Suckerbrook Hollow. They're really excited about the idea of putting up a little free library somewhere in town. They live close to Suckerbrook, and they thought it could be a fun and interesting way to engage the community to put one up. And they've offered to finance it and stock it with books and all that. So Suckerbrook is one of our country parks. It's really a management decision of the Conservation Commission whether infrastructure like that is kind of well suited to a trail area, or whether it might be better to work with the family to find another location. But I was speaking with Randy about coming to check in with you at the next meeting to talk a little bit more in person about the idea. So that's another one just to put on your radar and do a little thinking about in terms of, do you think that would be an appropriate location for putting up a little free library? Or would you be more interested in seeing that kind of community engagement in another location in town or another park?
Did they express or explain why the Suckerbrook trailhead would be a why did that come to their mind instead
I
of
think they
saying-
live close,
Okay.
they think within walking distance. I think it is part of it, and so it popped up to them as a natural opportunity. And they thought the idea, it's a place where people congregate, and it would be noticed and potentially used. So
It's interesting. I've never seen a little free library at a trailhead. Brief?
Yeah, I mean, I want to think about it more, obviously, we'll talk about it with the interested community members, but my first thought was, what a great place to have a lot of books about nature and recreation, and like to have it sort of like a little themed library. Almost,
True.
like, put your nature and outdoorsy books in here and borrow one, and that could be a cool, way to make it applicable and a value add for Suckerbrook, but just an initial thought that came to my head before I forget it.
Yeah, that's what came to mind for me too, Reed.
Put your bird book in here and somebody can borrow it while they're hiking to look for birds and then put it back, and things like that.
that's a cool idea.
That is a good idea.
Great, all right, well, that's the update. 4 minutes over, so I'll cut myself off there and back to you.
Thanks, Dave. So we started talking about the draft invasive management plan that Laura put together. I think we started touching on it, but didn't really get fully into it. So we asked that everybody read through the plan and then we can revisit in this meeting. So I think if we could open up the plan, then we will have it in front of us, as Dave is doing right now. And yeah, if you don't mind, I'll hand it over to you, Laura, and sort of let you sort of navigate what you need from us for the next half hour or so.
Okay, great. Did anybody have any comments right away on anything they read or didn't see or?
Comments, certainly not, because I don't read these very often.
Okay,
So this is, a little bit of but I appreciated what I saw. One thing that was popping into my mind is I mentioned this, last week, or is, in my neighborhood, I have the Asiatic bittersweet vine
Mm,
taking over. And, it's honestly for me, you guys see buckthorn from like a mile away. And you spot it, and I see that stuff, and I
Mhm.
spot it, and it's clear as day. So I was surprised that I didn't see it mentioned, in your plan.
yeah, that is one that's around. It should be in here. I don't see it as much, I think, in general, but there are places where
Yeah.
you're right, where it's really getting out of control.
Yeah, it's also one that I saw a lot in my, when we lived down in New York, and it takes over like entire forests. And
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's,
so
like,
it's good to,
really like scary and gross, and it's just like, so it for me, I would love to see that reflected, because I would love to have a way to, especially as I think of, empowering folks in their backyards to sort of go into like open space areas like what we have in our neighborhood, giving them good resources for like how to yank them, cut them.
what the best thing to do is.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cause that's kind of how I was thinking of it as is, it might be a while before we get someone paid to do this on our behalf.
mhm,
So if this could be like a resource for people to say like, if you're in Williston and you see this vine or buckthorn or whatever, and it's in your backyard, here's how you sort of manage for it. Like,
Right.
almost like a sort of a tool
mhm,
of sorts.
yeah, good idea.
That's what I was thinking of as I was reading.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that in the habitat disturbance assessment that Aaron said, sorry, Reed, just,
Okay, no, that's okay.
yeah,
I don't
um,
wanna forget, I have an idea.
that he said, the HOA should have invasive species plan so that the residents can,
Oh, yeah.
actually help with it.
Yeah.
Which I thought, that's just brilliant and should be in every.
Yeah.
Yeah, two things. One, before we're off that topic is, yes, it would be great longer term, I think, for the town to have a template that HOAs can adopt
Mhm,
as a management plan, because HOAs don't have a lot of time and
right,
expertise, and so they don't want to go out and
right,
Right.
create bespoke plan for this. They want to take something off the shelf and go, here's 5 paragraphs that we can copy and paste, and the next time we have an annual meeting, we can vote it into our
right,
rules and regulations or whatever, saying that these methods of preventing invasives from taking over our common land and our private land within our HOA are pre-approved, if you will. Kind of, the HOA I was part of had a pre-approved list of plants you're allowed to plant. They were native, they were available in this region. They were obviously non-invasive since they were native. And by having that list, it just made it really easy for a homeowner. They're like, oh, I want to put something here. Oh, look, there's the list of plants. Great. Let me just look through. Okay,
Yeah,
this
perfect.
is the one I'd like to do. They don't have to wonder about this or that.
mhm,
And then or plant something and have it take off and they go, uh-oh.
right,
So I think that's good. My larger comment was that the more we flesh this out, the more it makes me think we need some like under construction sections. Because we could spend all year crafting a really robust management plan. I think it's really important that by the time we get through May, we have something that we've
mhm,
agreed on and we're taking action on, so that we can use the budget that we do have with some like intentionality. And we can be as you've identified in some of these sections, as David and Chapin have provided input on, like there's certain areas where, yeah, like a few hours here now
mhm,
might prevent like 10 hours next year
Or
of
more.
work, so, or more.
Or give up,
So,
yeah.
right, exactly. So just maybe not trying to be too perfect about the short-term version of our management plan and saying like, okay, let's leave some sections listed as just, you know, ideas that we will build out. We will look into how to organize large groups of volunteers. Not yet, but we will look at, we'll develop how that's gonna look. For now, we're gonna use hired help, we're gonna do manual removal, stuff that doesn't involve the use of chemicals or chainsaws and stuff. Do education, basic education to begin to get people aware of these things. And leave some sections that we can work on in the meantime. That was my general feeling as I went through. I was like, oh, this is really good, but it's gonna take us a few months to get there, and I don't wanna miss things that we can do this summer.
Right, good idea. Yeah, I tried to put at the beginning the things that we could take action on right away.
And I
Yeah,
thought and I think these are good. I think early detection can start right away. And that doesn't require you know, waivers and stuff. People can be out there learning to identify it and reporting things. We still have to do something to set up a way for them to report it. There's some mechanism for them to report it. So that we collect the data and the data is usable and all that. And then doing like very targeted removals, I think is also actionable right away. Yeah, those seem like the things that jumped off the page to me as like, yeah, if we're trying to come up with a plan, which I think was our intent, try to come up with a plan for 2026 while we work on our plan for 27 forward. Those would be the things that we should put our effort into on the plan.
okay, that's great, thank you.
And maybe take some pressure off you too, in terms of like taking it from here to something that we want to. What was the process we were gonna do with this? Laura and David, is this something that we think needs to go elsewhere, or just sort of be discussed and voted on within the Conservation Commission to begin putting it into plan or into practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think the latter,
Something we should discuss and vote on with NCC.
yeah, I mean, that was my take on the short term versus long term.
Yeah.
And, you know, long term being a more prescribed, thought out plan that will be formalized. Maybe that's the kind of thing that you want to bring in a consultant to assist with, but that ultimately would get voted on and approved by the select board as
The town policy.
town plan.
Yeah, the town plan.
Or, well, a plan for, yeah, right,
Yeah.
townwide. Which is just a generally
Right, so we might want like Public Works bought in and participating, we
Right.
might want Parks and Rec
Parks
bought
and
in and
Rec.
participating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that, yeah, really trying to focus on what we feel like we can sort of like approve and run with this year would be great. But with maybe some action items in it that say, develop a longer term plan that engages other town departments, we'll develop a longer term plan that engages community volunteers in removal. Maybe
Yeah.
some things like that could be left even more vague than we have them now. Not that we want to get rid of the language we have, but kind of park it and say, well, that's gonna be part of a larger document later.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's go through and see what we
Yeah.
can do right now. Okay, so. For example, the person, Dave, that you're hiring. Do you think that they would, they could easily be on the lookout for, plants, like, cause I went to the Vermont Invasives website and it is there, and they do have a list of,
Yeah, it worked it for me again, so.
yeah, these are the. Plants that, if you can recognize them and. You
Oh, yeah,
know,
it's back up.
yeah, and you can print out glossy
Yeah,
photos of it,
print them quick while it's up.
yeah, print something, I know, So, and,
So you're wondering if based on the applicants that David's seen, he's feeling like it's likely that the role could play a part this year.
yeah, and I mean, when I walk around, I think, okay, what is that? You take iNaturalist and you say, oh, what is this thing that I haven't seen before? And I don't know if somebody who is walking the trails anyway could keep an eye out for.
Yeah, potentially, yes. I think, you know, for this year, the top candidates for the position, have different strength areas, and, you know, we could end up going with somebody who is, for example, really just a trails expert.
Okay,
But I think the long-term vision for this position is that it grows in these other directions as well.
mhm,
And those directions being volunteer coordination, invasive species management, and restoration activities, tree lighting, et cetera. So for this summer, bringing all those things together is definitely a possibility with the right candidate. But we're rebooting this position for the first time in 4
Right.
years, and we do have limited hours available for this summer. And the trail system is kind of the priority out of those. So I think it depends on the final candidate that we end up going with and kind of what their skill set is. But
mhm.
it's definitely a possibility. There are definitely some candidates that have experience in that area. That could be immediately tapped.
Mhm. Okay, so that's not a for sure thing this year, but, that, is in the works. And they would be the ones probably that would, talk to the Adopt a Trail folks, or is that something you do?
That is like a secondary piece of this whole thing,
Yeah.
is rebooting the Adopt a Trails program
Okay.
and.
Yeah, I think that might need to go on the longer term.
I think
2027.
it's something that I could happen as soon as I'd say late summer, but the piece that is missing is the town volunteer policy, which is going through.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like going through staff right now. Staff was given a period to comment on it, and now it's back in the town manager's office. And they're gonna be presenting that to the select board
Yeah, so we need that first.
in, I want to say a May select board meeting for approval early June is kind of the hopeful trajectory. So I think once that is set, then it'll be a little more clear kind of what we're working with. That policy, as I saw drafted, has some carve outs again for minors to get involved with parental supervision and or in certain opportunities. So potentially solving some of the issues that have been friction points in town, but we won't know exactly what it's going to look like until seeing the most recently revised draft. And once we have that in hand, we'll kind of know what the parameters are. And I think rebooting volunteer trail monitor, trail steward program is a early priority for that.
Okay, great. All right, so that's in the works. How about educational handouts at Green Update? That's number 4 under Focus 1 early detection. Do we want to take away from our other what we had decided on doing, which was, okay, which of these ideas would you be interested in pursuing?
For your
example,
usage, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think, I think the good thing about Green Up Day is people are interested in different things,
Yeah.
so people could come to our station, answer that question, and we could still offer them, if you want to do something, even this summer, we're looking for help identifying especially more rare invasive species that maybe
Yeah.
are new or aren't established.
Mhm.
Here's a handout that can help you learn to identify them if that's something you're interested in learning this summer.
Mhm.
And reporting. I don't see a negative to that. I don't know how many people will take it. But a few might, or somebody
What
might
would
say,
you do
that's
with
not my land. Yeah, I'll take one of these.
What would you do with the report?
Well, we have to talk about what we'll do with the reports, but
Yeah.
I think the short-term plan would say we'll need to put in here what we're gonna do with reports. What's the mechanism for people to report? Are we gonna have like a Google form, or do they email the conservation planner, which is probably a giant headache to have emails coming left and right with
Right.
unstructured data. But we have
Yeah.
to define that process and make it easy for people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it could be just a page on the website with a QR code, and when you scan the QR code, it pulls up, a form, and you fill in, here's the address, and here's the species, and here's my contact information, and here's one sentence, 2 sentence description of what I found. I mean,
Does that imply that someone is gonna then come onto your land and take care of it?
right, so
for
we
you?
define all those things. We say, when you report this, here's what we do with it. We put it into our log, and if we identify things that seem like they need to be addressed on a short-term basis, then we will contact you back and let you know that we're gonna come do something about it.
I guess that's what I'm getting at, is like, I don't find, especially on someone else's land, I don't find that likelihood to be
Yeah.
very.
I guess I mean more like if you're walking town trails, which
Okay.
could be on public land, could be on the fringes of
Yeah.
private land.
That's where I'm kind of like, okay, what is this plan actually for? Cause you
Yeah.
have my first comment, which was sort of like, how do I deal with something in my backyard? I don't necessarily feel like I need to report that, I don't think, but if
Yeah.
you're on,
It's a good point,
if
yeah.
you're on like either a public trail or a trail that, or
Or
a
along a road.
common land trail even,
Mhm.
what, is this target audience basically for those public spaces? And that's what our short-term focus therefore is basically town-owned land and public trails. That might help sort of narrow the window of like what we're thinking about as a short-term plan.
Um. Well, there is already a way to report this on the Vermont invasive site, it says report what you see. We could just tell people, do that.
Then use that as our inventory.
And there's a map on the Vermont invasive site that says,
Okay.
oh, here are the early detection plants. And look, and actually, they're kind of around Williston and the Vermont Department, of Forest Parks and Rec actually has a map, and I know the person right now that's running the the Vermont Invasives program, so I could even talk to them about, how is this up to date? Like, how often do people report things? Like, I don't know if people are gonna get into this website and really do that, but I know that people really get into, for the aquatic stuff, being a invasive, looking for invasives, and they have this whole set of volunteers who go out and look for water chestnut, and could be very similar, but you just have to give them the information, say, this is what you do.
Right. Help me understand though, like, are we talking about, is this plan for town-owned and public trails, or is it for the sort of all of Williston, like all landowners? As you were writing it, what were you thinking, like?
Oh, different things. There are different things
Okay.
here. First, education for people who can take a buckthorn blaster on their own property and get rid of invasives, because if you don't do that, then the barberry, the
Seed stuff,
fire bush, whatever, they're just gonna spread. Because they were all planted in the sixties and they're still around. There are businesses that a volunteer, this is in the future, could go out and see what businesses have those plants, talk to them.
Kill 'em.
Yeah, can we get them to do something? And if not, are there grants where we can say, here, we have a
We'll pay to
grant?
replace it.
Yeah, we'll pay to replace.
Okay. So
Landscape.
this is meant to be the sort of like very broad, town-wide,
Broad but targeted.
okay,
So, one, education is easy. People can do, you got people all over dealing with their own yards. And when I've given educational walks and I always order like 20 of these and I hand them out. And people come to my house to get the glyphosate and the blue dye that you put in here. I mean, and the stump cut treatment is very easy, and it's just a little bingo dauber that you put on, and so you're not, glyphosate has a bad rep because it's sprayed all over the place. On,
With
big
targeted
fields and
application to a stem, it's a very different
Yeah.
proposition for a
And
homeowner to
it's
be.
very different. I mean, you wear gloves, but yeah, the risk is very minimal. And it binds so tightly to soil particles, the glyphosate, that it's, even if a drop fell on the ground, it's not gonna, the water isn't gonna take it off into somewhere where it's gonna kill something else.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to recognize the plants because you could kill something that's native if you don't know
Okay.
what you're doing. So that's,
So your focus is education on what's in town, methods for removal, and you're not targeting like the public works department or just town rec. You're just sort of saying this is a general education piece that we should get out there so that anyone from town managers to um people like me can sort of get use out of it.
yes, but also get in touch with
Yeah, the resources, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
That's
we could
helpful.
probably give people some criteria
yeah,
for how to know what to do with what they found. So
right,
if you found something that's on this list, which are not common invasives in Williston, we need you to report it
yeah.
because it's potentially a new species that we need to get a
Mhm.
handle on quickly. If you found one of these that are already common in Williston and it's on private
On
property,
your property.
follow these instructions on how to get up to speed on managing invasives on your property.
Mhm,
And here's an expert you can contact if you have questions or whatever,
mhm.
or a place you can go for resources. If
Right.
you found one of these that is common, but it's on public land, then that gets a little bit trickier. But
Don't
we
do
want them-
anything.
Don't do anything to it, but you could report it. We have to decide what we want the instructions to say. At this point, it might say, if you found it on public land, it's one of the common invasive species. You can put it on the state invasives report if you want to, but it's not our focus right now, right? We're focused on
Mhm.
especially new species and especially new infestations
Right,
of those new species.
yeah, that's why that's first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you try to do everything at once, nothing really happens. So we have to kind
Right.
of pinpoint what we want to do.
Right. So early detections, though.
But even a new common species is important. So
Yeah.
like
I
it
think
might be
what I'm
common,
saying
but
is
in a
that-
new place, that's also would be a high priority. So that's
Yeah.
it
I
might
think
just
what I'm saying
be
is for
better
2026.
to engage people and put it on the map if you see it. Like, who cares if there's an extra
Yeah.
one there? Like,
Yeah, I just want to set expectations, like to Dave's question, like, are we gonna come out and do something about that plant that the person mapped? If it's a common invasive species and it's on public land, their expectation should be, we're probably not gonna run out and do something about it this, whatever, month. But that answer might change over time as our resources to deal with things go up. We may be able to allocate some energy toward, okay, if somebody reported something, let's take care of it. Right now, we just know we can't spread across too many projects, and so I
Right,
think your point is good, Lynn. I think it would be wise for people to report those things even on public land, but they need to know that we're not just going to run out and kill every buckthorn that somebody sees.
yeah, and who are they gonna report it to? So I think that in a case like that, for example, barberry can really become a mat. If there are only a few individuals, it can spread and become a mat. That is something that as a conservation commission, and we're doing a management plan, we can think about. But I think having people just go out and suddenly 20 people a day are calling Dave is not a good idea.
Well, right now, 0 people are calling today about this.
Somebody calling Dave would be nice. Yeah.
No, I hear you. So I guess
Somewhere
what
between
I'm
0 and
filtering out of this conversation is that one of the early items is that we need to set up a monitoring system. Right now, we don't have a way for people to report invasives to the town. There are some existing channels to report to the state, which could still be useful, which we could use, but at some point we need to have a system for reporting. And that's well timed. I've been thinking about this and working on it a little bit. And working with Colin, our planning tech, who's also GIS wizard, on what's gonna be the appropriate level of kind of infrastructure to maintain on the town side. Should we be putting together something that's kind of in-house system for collecting, or should we be trying to funnel people through using established systems like iNaturalist or
Mhm.
IMAP invasives or some of these other things that are out there. So that's something I will be working on this spring, and so we can try to pull that into this early action.
So I think that, Dave, I'm glad you raised this as something that you're thinking about too, because I think for there to be a town-approved invasive plan by the select board, it would have it would carry with it certain steps where, it's like, this is great as a resource for the types of invasives that we're gonna see around town and the steps to take to manage them. I'm really interested in understanding like, okay, if the select board approves a plan like this, then Public Works has a responsibility to do something if they see this on one of their parking lot zones or something, right? Or that it's gonna direct the planning commission to set up a monitoring station or site or whatever, or a reporting mechanism.
Yeah,
as we're saying.
I mean, yes, and what you're describing is just inherently a much bigger project, and
Yeah,
the Conservation Commission can't write a report and then say, that dictates what Public Works should do, and then say, select board approve this, so that
Right.
the job description of Public Works is gonna change, right? That process
well, we could try, but
would need to be, would need to be interdisciplinary,
collaboration.
right, have to be collaboration, so. I think it starts here, but then, the next steps are pulling in someone from Parks and Rec, Todd is. Very interested in this, and as they're working on their kind of Parks Master Plan. He's hoping to pull in an invasive species managed component and, keep working on where, Chapin has kind of left off and the work that's been done in Village Community Park, for example, so. Bringing those people into the room and saying, this is, as a Conservation Commission, this is what we're thinking, these are our broader goals for the town. And our next step, is we're hoping to bring this, to a town-wide scale and have some buy-in from, your departments, so that we can have a unified plan across the town. So I think that's kind of how that has to go, and is therefore necessarily gonna be a longer process, that might involve putting together a little working group or, some sessions outside the Conservation Commission.
Mhm.
But for now, I think the work that you're doing to kind of identify the priorities and identify the long-term vision is valuable. And, identifying these kind of links in the chain that are missing, like we don't have a good reporting system developed, you want to have the answer to that before you bring in everyone else to talk about, what direction to go. You have the priorities identified for education, and for early detection, you have a way to work on it. So I think that's kind of my take on that, and why those two strategies are really fundamentally different.
thank you, that's helpful.
Mhm.
Laura, what do you want to do next with this?
Okay, so I think we should decide. It sounds like the thing that we should do now is there can be an educational piece where we introduce people to what, like, even that there's a Vermont invasive site and why these plants are bad and what they are, and I can get some color glossy photos of everything and maybe some extra handouts for people if they want to take them for Green Up Day. And I could even have some I could talk about buckthorn blasters and how people can use something like this in their own backyard, but not on public land.
I think,
So-
I like the idea of having some printouts at Green Up Day and,
Mhm.
I would take a buckthorn blaster, but I also have been wanting to do invasive management in my backyard for a while. I don't know if that's something, like, can you just hand those out?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, but people don't know what to do with them.
No, right, yeah.
So I could come to your backyard and help you.
Yeah,
Yeah, here's a buckthorn blaster and my phone number. I'll come to your house and show you how to use it.
But there is a,
I have more vine than buckthorn. Or I think, I don't know, maybe I don't want to.
I mean. There are directions, I mean, it does have, say, add 18 to 20% glyphosate herbicide, and you can get that at. You know, Ace Hardware. And with some directions, like if you get some. It's really important to put some dye in it. And with some directions, people could. Theoretically just do this on their own. So.
Okay, what are other people's thoughts on, like? So that's the short term, that's something that we could do like on the May.
Next month.
Yeah, that's next month activity, right? What do we wanna do with the plan? Do we wanna keep working on it? Do we wanna prove it? Like, where are people at?
I think we should wait till after June when the volunteer policy.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
because there's nothing else we can really,
Other than education, there's not much
Yeah.
we'll do until,
Okay.
until removal of poison parsnip. July
yeah,
timeframe.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I would definitely like to focus on this summer is keeping the momentum up on parsnip removal.
okay,
And galvanizing volunteers support around that work. And, you know, as to the early detection. And rapid response work, right, we have to build out the capacity for rapid response and. We'll know kind of soon about the capacity for the trail steward to work on that kind of thing. But we also have, we do have some tools and resources, so for the last 4 years, Intervale Conservation Nurseries come to Williston to provide some free work. I think last year was 3 days, that work has been funded by the Lake Champlain Basin Program. Last year, they worked out behind the fire station in the Allen Brook, clearing buckthorn and honeysuckle, and so we do have the potential to partner with some organizations that can provide some rapid response work. If we have information, so I think
A
we can.
small amount of budget as well that we could contract, not a lot, but a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah, potentially.
I have a potentially dumb question, which is, obviously, we had an example of someone clear cutting their property last week that was sort of for our awareness. And they got in trouble for it. What is the difference between that and then like an invasive plan? Like, do you need permits to have a crew of people come in through a riparian zone and clear out honeysuckle and buckthorn? You are removing woody species from that area, but is it considered to be like, no, you don't need a permit for that because you're removing invasives and therefore it's okay? I'm totally unaware of like how that works.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're getting into kind of the gray areas and technicalities, you know, so. You should not remove woody vegetation in a wetland without a permit. Invasives are. There is a carve out for removing invasives, but depending on what you're doing and the scale of it, you may need to get that approved by Agency of Natural Resources if you're proposing that in a wetland.
Either
the wetland buffer.
the plan or the action. Like if it's in your plan and that's approved by the agency, do you then have to go to the agency every single time you wanna go into that wetland?
No, the plan.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, yeah, I mean, clearing. In terms of clearing, there's 2 things. One is just if you're gonna clear more than a quarter acre, I think is the threshold, you need a discretionary permit from the select board or from the DRB to go do that on your own land. There are bylaws around, depending on where you live and what the forest cover is, you know, there are bylaws that are there to keep forest cover, so, you know, if you're living on land that has a half-acre clearing zone, and the rest of your land is forest, you can't just go clear it.
Even if
In
it's
the
all
case,
honeysuckle.
well,
Or
that's
buckthorn.
a little different.
But is that
right?
forest?
Right, that's not necessarily forest.
Yeah, if it's understory stuff, then it's invasive removal, that's where it gets into the gray zone, it's like, well, we probably would.
What if you're clearing it? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't need to take it.
You have to
down
think
this
about
path.
like an aerial view, clearing would be like, if you took a picture from above and it looked like it was forested.
Yeah.
And then you took a picture above and it looked like it was no longer
Oh,
forested,
yeah.
that's clearing, but if you're going through the understory and removing invasives, that's not clearing.
Sure, that makes.
But we do wanna be,
Yeah.
you know, careful about advising people because
Right.
not everybody can identify native versus invasive species properly.
Right, and you know, removing invasives can also be used as cover for just going in and brush hogging an area. So it is a little tricky, and you know, there are some technical rules around removing invasives in a wetland area. Or removing woody vegetation in a wetland area, which can overlap with invasives, so it can get tricky, but yeah.
Okay, well, we've spent a good amount of time on this, I think we also have, I think
Can
we
I-
have some good, go ahead,
Yeah,
Lynn.
I wasn't
Can I
done,
just
sorry.
ask about number 2 under the focus 1, early detection? There's, because this might come up for poison parsnip, which isn't really early detection, but if we're thinking about doing that this year, we would need somebody to like lead those efforts if we're putting something out on Front Porch Forum or even for or for Master Naturalists. Do we have, or can we think about a mechanism of how we might do that? Like a few people who would lead these efforts, like here's how you safely pull it, and here's the clothes that you should wear, and the person picking the time, like we're not going to pick, you know, noon on a sunny day, ideally, to do that.
Yes, okay, yeah, so let me clarify, because I think this came up last time too, there's no intention to send people out without information to clear poison parsnip.
Mhm.
That volunteer effort would need to be run by somebody who can show people the correct way to do it, the correct time to do it. We have community volunteers who've done that work. Terry Marin, Chapin Kanor have been leading that work, demonstrating appropriate technique. Those individuals could likely be tapped to continue that work. But we can also bring staff into it, find other volunteers who are qualified. So I do want to clarify that. That's right, that comment was brought up last week as well, and there's absolutely no intention of creating an unsafe situation. Information is also contained in the parsnip removal waiver for folks who are approved to participate in that volunteer effort. So there is intentionality and thought
Safeguards
there.
there.
Yeah, I guess I meant it more as like, should that be something that we're starting to plan now? If we want to implement that this year, that we should get those list of people, because I just feel like July is going to be here pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't know if there needs to be a list, I mean, the list of people who, can actually lead the work, is that what you're talking about, Lynn? The
Yeah,
list?
like we're,
Oh,
we're
I see.
ready. So when we want to do this, when these things are, when it's ready to go, that we're ready, that we have somebody who's willing to lead a group, or, you know, a few people who are willing to lead a group and identify some, I mean, there's no shortage of places to pull poison parsnip, so identify the places that we're gonna do it. Like last year, Chapin and I did the bike path and the Allenbrook, the entry into Tree Island from Allenbrook. Like those are obvious places because there's kids around, and so if this is a goal for this summer, then we probably want to be doing some planning around that in May and June, so we're ready to go in July.
Yeah, I don't think we can do anything until the volunteer policy is ready, except maybe talk about where we would go from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's also a little bit of gray area. I've talked to the town manager's office about, depending on how long it takes this policy to go through. And I do have permission to proceed with some volunteer work using the same system that we had last year, the waivers that were created for that. So this is something that I'm fairly positive we'd be able to continue even if the volunteer, even without the volunteer policy officially approved. But yes, Lana, no, I agree that planning is definitely necessary for that, and May and June are the time to do it.
So I'll talk to Dave about what next steps are for the poison parsnip. That number 2 for that first priority of exotic plants really doesn't have to do with poison parsnip. It has to do more with if you see a patch of knotweed, for example, at Allenbrook, how do we get people together to remove it? So, and
That
I
still
think-
requires some amount of coordination.
Right, yes,
So, well, I mean, I think those kinds of things need to be worked out,
Yeah.
yes,
similar to
I'm sorry.
poison parsnip.
Right.
Clearly, this conversation to me is indicating this is our first step of a very complicated topic. But let's go to Reed and then let's talk about town green update.
I was just gonna say that, I thought about what you said, Lena, sorry, Laura, about maybe we should wait. I don't think we should wait, I just think we should maybe like do a save as on this document. And go to something really short for this year that says, this year, this is what we're gonna try to do. And it might just be 1 page.
I like
It
that.
just says like 2026.
Okay.
Here's our, and the last thing on it is continue work to develop a long-term management plan, invasive
Okay.
management plan. And I just think that that is gonna free up David to have clear instructions to make decisions this year, whereas I think if we leave it as like, well, we have a draft, but we haven't refined it and voted on it as a commission. What if an opportunity does come up? Is it clear that we should take action on it? Do we hire somebody, do not hire somebody? Do we have to have a conversation with the commission? I just feel like I wanna free David up to be like, I know what the commission wants this year. And if an opportunity comes up, I can take action on it. I don't need to wait for a meeting and a vote and different things. But does that resonate with you, David?
I mean,
Like, would it be helpful? to have a
let
plan
me
that says-
just clarify that this plan is not. I don't view this discussion as you giving me a job description either. Invasive species is something that is on my plan, or on, in my awareness and. Again, just want to be clear with the commission that there's no intention of sending volunteers out with the instructions to work on invasives without coordination, without instruction. When folks come in to volunteer, I don't just write them a waiver and send them. So there's thought intentionality, and that the programs that we do have are generally led by a community volunteer who has a specific target in mind. So I think what your plan is going to help with is understanding what you think are the short-term priorities that you want to see taken care of.
Like specific areas?
Right, so that we can develop programs and find community leaders who can work on those things. So, if education is a priority, then I want to help support you in finding the folks who can provide that education, or finding the resources that can provide that. If parsnip is a priority for you as well, then yeah, let's collaborate on the focus areas and extend the network of individuals who can lead that, so it's not just Chapin carrying that load year to year. So I'm a resource for you, but I do want to be clear that if you write a 1 page, that is, it should focus on what you think are the short-term priorities and what you're hoping to achieve, and I'm here to help you do that.
I would, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna do something like that, to me, I think what would be helpful is to focus on specific areas. If you have a spot in town that you know is overrun, then a short-term plan can be. We're gonna organize 1 volunteer event or 5 to take care of this one spot. And then that to me is a short-term plan. That we can do independent of. Or with now in coordination, with town, obviously. We do need to move on though, because we're gonna have our guests, for the applicant, so should we just continue this, until we kind of have I mean, it sounds like there's high interest and high expertise.
Okay, I'll get together with Dave and talk
Yeah,
about what
I
we
think,
need.
yeah, if anyone's interested in joining in on that, I think that's a good idea, but, just with the many things that the Conservation Commission has on its list to continue talking about. The next session as well, and, development review coming up, I think it's probably a good idea. To make progress on this on the side.
I'd be happy to meet with you all.
Oh, okay,
and,
great, thanks, Reed.
Yeah.
And me
think
too,
through-
Laura.
Okay, great. We have a committee, right?
Subcommittee. Perfect. Okay, town green up day. Dave, what is the plan from the town? How is it being organized this year?
So same as last year, there are tables. For town committees and community groups to staff. So you have the opportunity, like last year, to staff a table and have resources out, have a map, if you will. So it's really up to you what you'd like to do, and that I'll support that with however you like. So I know last time there was talk about having these priority ideas for ERF implementation available in some way for the public to interact with and voice support for. So one way that's been done in the past, have a large map of town, have people mark where they, things they're interested in. That can be helpful. Here you've got some pretty targeted priorities, and some of them are abstract. So a map, it's an open question of whether a map is kind of the best way to do that, because a map is going to tend to focus people's thinking towards specific areas. So it could potentially affect undervaluing some of the initiatives, like working on north-south connectivity, or that was mentioned, because it's a little more abstract. But you never know, maybe someone would say, oh, well, here's a great place to do that. So a map can be a good engagement tool. We've used that in the past, so maybe we could do it again. There could be other ways to do that, and have, some kind of visual medium for sharing those 9 priority options or ideas, having people engage with them. So that's kind of your.
Is there, who's available and interested in? You mentioned last week that you would be.
Yeah, I'm gonna be around for, day, so.
Great.
Yeah, I can go too.
Oh, perfect. So what's the length of time? Like, what are the hours? How many hours do we need to fill?
9 to noon plus setup and take that, right?
9 to noon, is that what you
Yeah.
said?
Yep. You need to be set up by 9, and then at noon, usually at noon, we're already starting
Pretty
to
much
break things down, yeah.
Right. Okay, so like 8:30 to noon is the commitment period. Do both of you wanna spend your time, sign up for that whole time, or do you need to?
Yeah,
split it
so
up?
I think as far as the days.
I don't need to split it up, but if there are a number, hi,
Okay.
of volunteers, yeah,
Lynn, what about you?
good.
Yeah, I'm happy to be there the whole time.
Okay, well then that's great. I mean, 2
That also
people.
means you get to decide everything about.
Yeah.
Because, if you're gonna be the one doing it, it should be the way you want it to be.
Well, I think we decided that
Yeah.
we voted on like a couple different.
Yeah.
Priorities that we wanted to talk about, so we should probably highlight those, right? There was the.
Mhm. We did a straw poll. You did a straw.
Yeah, right, crosstown trail. And the, town-owned land that, people wanted to have access to with
Yeah.
business.
Right.
Yeah, I think was there a third one? Or
Might have been.
I wanna say
I
there were
can look
like,
back at the notes.
yeah, I wanna say there were like at least 3 options for people to sort of give us feedback on,
Mhm.
of these,
think
which one
the-
gets you excited.
The third was like conservation for conservation's sake, not necessarily trails and access.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Flood protection.
connectivity and
Yeah,
forest
flood.
blocks,
Flood
things like that.
resilience. We have quite a list, And I think even just talking to the public about those topics and saying, you know, this is something that Conservation Commission is considering. What are your thoughts about it? Does this, you excited about it? Do you have concerns about how it might turn out? I think it's just helpful to kind of gauge some feedback.
Were we gonna do like, how should we use the ERF? I mean, not, people just voted on the ERF, so that might be of interest, like either way that they voted, like how most people know that it passed. So I think, I mean, that's the question that we asked ourselves. And so should we be asking the public this now to get their input?
Yeah, I had an image in my headline of people having Monopoly money. And you give everybody like $10 of Monopoly money, and then you have little jars that are opaque, you can't see how much is in it.
Yeah.
And people put, if you had $10 of Monopoly
Yeah.
money, which ones would you put your money in?
Yeah,
And they can split it up, or they can put it all in one, and then at the end of the event, you can be like, Gart, this is how people voted with their dollars.
yeah,
That'd
that'd
be
be,
kinda cool.
that's a really good
Very
idea.
cool.
I think a
Okay,
map is
so-
always interesting because people look to see where they live and what's around them. And I think maps are really engaging.
Yeah, we did
If
that
we have a
last
map
year.
that exists already.
Yeah, we did that last year and we had a lot of input. And I think people are wondering where the follow through is with that. I've been getting emails about it.
Yeah, good.
Like, what did they do with the map? I was just thinking just to have it there, just to talk about like here's our country parks and here's
Oh,
the
I see what
town
you're
on
saying.
land and here's high areas of high priority.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, people were putting stickers on where they would like to see more trail access.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't,
To me,
I
I
was
would,
just, no, go ahead.
I was thinking that, a map would be helpful to draw attention to places like, you know, the northern Big Bend parcel, Brownell,
Or
Yeah, and then-
even trails that they might not know we have,
and
crosstown trail.
yeah, exactly.
A lot of people
Right.
don't know we have a crosstown trail, so.
Right. I think a map is great, but I think it's really it's gonna be up to you guys, how you wanna engage with the public. I'll swing by, probably at some point just to say hello. But yeah. Do you need anything more from us? Do you need maps that Dave to print out or anything?
We'll talk to Dave, but I think we know what you have said in the past are good ideas to put out there.
Okay, great. So I'm just jumping in, noting
Yep.
we have a transition coming
All
up in 2 minutes. So Lynn and Laura and I think we'll meet and we can prioritize that. There's 2 weeks till cleanup day, so I think it would be great to. I'm out on Friday this week, but I mean, if we could meet. We could meet tomorrow if you're both available, or maybe early next week might be a good target. We can talk about plans and develop that a little more, and what resources I can provide for you in terms of printing out a big map and all that stuff.
Yeah, tomorrow's fine with me, Lynn. I know you work during the day.
Yeah, I'd have to check my schedule.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, so let's.
and I think we wanted to have invasives, the information about invasives too.
Yeah, I
Some
can,
handout.
yeah,
Handouts, yeah, available.
yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. Sounds like a good start to a plan.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
And do they need tables or do you have tables?
We have tables,
Okay.
yeah. All right, awesome. Okay, so I'll look forward to meeting with Laura and Lynn, and then I'd suggest we'll kick off that invasives plans subcommittee. Maybe after cleanup day. So yeah, early May or something like that with
Sounds
Lynn,
good.
Laura and Reedy.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, thank you all for your engagement on that.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's move on to the Marcotte proposed subdivision habitat disturbance assessment. Looks like Aaron is here for Arrowwood.
Yes, okay, so the Marcotts have joined us. We got some
Morning.
introductions and welcome.
Hi.
Biologist Aaron Worthley from Airwood Environmental is online. And so we go around and do some quick introductions, but I'll preface this by saying that, this is really an informational session today. This is not a review of the proposed Marcotte subdivision. That'll be happening on May 6th. So this is really an opportunity to hear directly from Aaron about the findings of the habitat disturbance assessment. Ask any questions that you have, receive some high-level overview of the project and key findings and recommendations. So with that,
I believe the Marcotts have been here. I don't think we need introductions, right? Do we? Or would you like?
up to you. It's always friendly.
I honestly don't remember any of your.
Sure, okay. So I'll start. I'm Dave Westman. I'm the current chair.
Laura Meyer, I'm on the committee.
The read car.
I'm Cindy.
Hi,
Yeah,
Cindy.
Oh, I'm John.
John, Cindy.
And we have.
I'm Lynn Blevins, committee member.
Very good. Thank you.
Great. I'm Dave Maroney, conservation planner. And online, Aaron, would you like to introduce yourself and kick it off?
Sure, thank you. I'm Aaron Worthley. I'm an ecologist with Arrowwood Environmental. Great to be back here with you folks again. So we were pulled in to conduct a significant wildlife habitat assessment, disturbance assessment on the Marcotte proposed subdivision. You not hearing me well, is that?
Something just happened. We lost you. Default microphone has changed. Did you unplug it when we tried that? It might have gotten unplugged.
I could hear Aaron, so I think it might be on your side.
Yeah, and can hear you guys too. Maybe they can't hear us.
Yeah, no, we can't hear them.
There we go.
Okay, you should hear us now, right?
Yep.
Can hear
Okay.
you, yep.
Good, Aaron.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, yeah, we lost our video, but that's,
You lost, okay.
Oh, there we go.
Hey.
We're back.
It's loading.
The owl's eyes are back on, so yeah, they're here.
all right, thanks. So, so conducting the habitat disturbance assessment on the Marcotte property, I thought what I would do is just kind of run through. I've got a few slides that are really just the graphic maps out of the report, and I can just very quickly spin through those and do a little quick overview of the findings, and then really just you know, open to questions or discussions as you see fit. Does that sound good?
Yes, sounds good.
All right, so oh, I guess I need a share.
Yes, I just realized that I'm looking for it. Okay.
Send a request.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Wow.
Okay, you should be able to share your screen now. Great.
All right. Is that visible?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I'll just run through this set of maps out of the report, just as kind of a visual reference for what I'm talking about here. So the first place when doing these assessments that I like to start is sort of looking regionally and kind of broader perspective at what's going on, you know, in the area immediately around the project, and then much more broadly across the surrounding landscape, in particular in relation to Williston's, you know, regulatory mapped significant wildlife habitat areas, including the core forest and the travel corridors, but also, you know, outside of the town boundary. Of course, we know wildlife doesn't respect any political boundaries, so it's important that we consider what's happening beyond the edge of Williston. And, you know, and then other, you know, just kind of other considerations too, just from a broad ecological thinking about what wildlife's needs are being present on this landscape and being able to operate in Williston. So, you know, in this case, what we're seeing is that Marcotte property down on kind of the southern tip of Williston is really well, first of all, it's almost entirely mapped in the Williston's core forest habitat, as well as in the travel corridor mapping. And so the red areas that you're seeing there are the core habitat. The more yellow areas are the travel corridors. And I mean, there's a fair amount of overlap where the corridors are mapped within the core habitat. But I think the really important thing is where those corridors are happening in between the forested habitat. And so in the black arrows are mine, and that's really just kind of to illustrate the movement patterns that are available based on the landscape conditions here. So we've really got movement in all directions. That's facilitated by reasonably good corridor connections and relatively large core habitat blocks that allow kind of out of the more kind of wilder, more remote areas in the southern part of the county, moving up into Williston and some of the more developed areas through some of these interspersed blocks and corridors. And so there's really direct connections all the way up to Interstate 89. There's really nice connections into the mud pond area, and then to the northwest as well. Not to mention that, as I mentioned before, into the Richmond, Heinsberg, and St. George, and to the south. A lot of this movement can really be illustrated really well from a bobcat study that was done back in the early 2000s. This was a pretty interesting project, and there were a number of bobcats that were captured and GPS collared, and you all may be familiar with this, but they primarily in the Shelburne Charlotte area for these, it was where they were captured, but these cats move really widely and broadly, and so this is an overlay of just one of those cats. I think the GPS positions were gathered every 15 minutes, or maybe it was 30 minutes. So you kind of see, a general scattered representation of where, in this case, a single cat is moving over a period of time. And so a lot of movement in and out of this area to the southwest into St. George. Interesting amount of movement kind of to the north of the Marcotte property, up towards Mud Pond. Similarly, kind of due west out this way. And then, of course, there's lots of kind of this sort of represents, spending time moving greater distances within this area where the points get much more scattered about, maybe not staying in one place quite as long.
That's a really cool map. What's the pink arrow, Aaron?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So the pink arrow is just sort of I'll bring it back here because it was on here as well. So that's sort of a secondary corridor. As I sort of looked at this landscape here, these black arrows really are really good movement opportunities for a wide range of wildlife. But there also exists kind of this little much more fragmented but still present connection through this northern area into this corridor that's mapped in the Williston regulation here, and that kind of is a secondary movement up into that mud pond area. And then
the bobcat somewhat agreed there.
And the bobcats somewhat agreed, exactly. Yeah, I think I found that very interesting. So that's definitely in use. And I think it also represents the fact that, at least for bobcats, that they will find ways to move across a somewhat fragmented and developed landscape if there's enough opportunity there. You'll notice that there's a fair bit of avoidance of this kind of area in here, except for right along hedgerows.
Too open.
They'll follow those hedgerows in a really rapid fashion, but otherwise avoid some of the more developed and broadly open areas. So getting into the habitat mapping specific to the parcel itself, the significant wildlife habitat mapping is sort of a landscape level. This is really kind of really more what we find by visiting the parcel and looking at what's going on there. There's two stream systems. I refer to them as the northern and the eastern streams. They sort of are separate subwatersheds that both feed to Lake Iroquois, but at different locations. They're associated with each of those streams. There's two kind of networks of wetlands that drain into them, and they're both really large interconnected complexes. The one in the northern watershed is kind of much more fingery. It's interrupted by some of the existing development in that area. But it feeds into what looks to be a really, really large wetland complex down to the west of the property here and north of Lake Iroquois. Interior forest is sort of an ecological concept that we've been using for many years to kind of define this any kind of unfragmented forest that's at least 100 meters or 300 feet from a development or any kind of a non-forest edge. And these are the places that are really protected from those edge effects. They get away from that, you know, the predation and the impacts of those species that are more edge tolerant. And so these are the places where your wide-ranging mammals, your bobcats and your fishers and your bear and those kind of things can really find their livelihood. As well as a whole host of forest interior nesting birds that will try to avoid those edge areas. Along the western side, the eastern side of the property, there's a significant natural community mapped in Heinsberg to the east. It's a hemlock northern hardwood forest. When that mapping was done, it was done. It's in Richmond, not in Heinsberg. It was done as part of a four-town natural resource inventory that included Richmond and ended at the Richmond border. So the mapping wasn't extended into Williston, but in fact, the community itself does extend onto this property. And so that's worth noting. It's a very nice, predominantly hemlock kind of group of stands. Tends to occur on more shallow soil, rocky knobs, with kind of a lot of topographic diversity. And in addition to being a state significant natural community, it's also functioning as deer winter habitat. So moving into the proposed development, 8 lots are proposed. This map is really just illustrating where that development is proposed to take place, kind of in relationship to some of the those habitat elements that were shown in the previous map. So we've got the stream channel that's through the kind of through the middle of the project area. The wetlands and their 50-foot buffers, which are regulated by the state, are driving a good portion of this development pattern. And at least that's my understanding, and kind of pushing it maybe further out away from the further away from South Road and Bear Trap Lane due to the regulatory requirements of avoiding disturbance to those wetlands and buffers. The white hashed area is the area of that interior forest that would be lost through the course of this development. So this is utilizing, this is assuming that the building envelopes, which are kind of the gray squares, would be cleared, and those would become new edges, and that 100 meters away from that would be no longer considered that interior forest area. So it moves that interior forest edge a considerable distance, you know, in this case from this point up here around lot 3, way down here. Let's see. Anything else I wanted to mention here? I think that's the most. One component of the project is a proposed public trail easement. This is a 20-foot wide easement that really hugs the property line. I think this is a interesting and noble idea. I'm not sure that it's really well implemented in this case, primarily because it's relatively impractical. And I think, you know, there's several small wetland crossings along this north edge that are probably manageable to deal with from an infrastructure standpoint. This entire eastern edge here is a really significant stream corridor and wetland complex, and really makes up a, you know, kind of a important corridor, wildlife corridor for a range of, you know, I think everything from amphibians to large mammals are able to use this area. I think it's highly unlikely that this wetland crossing would be a permittable option. It's certainly not, there's certainly not capability of putting a trail in there without some kind of a elevated structure. And I think the natural question is always going to be, why couldn't you put the trail over here instead of plowing it right through the wetland? And so I think that's just from a practical standpoint, I think it's questionable. And from an ecological standpoint, I think it's certainly not a desirable option. I'll get into a little bit more about the trail in just a minute, but I think that's the extent of that one. And then moving into kind of the overall general recommendations. You know, I'm going to go back for a minute. I want to just go back to this slide and point out a couple of other things about this property. So I've drawn this yellow line here, which is an approximate division between what's a relatively young, even-aged forest, lots of trees that are kind of in that mid stage of growth, a lot of sort of later age, early succession trees like red maple and white birch and aspen. And then south of this is a much more mature, what we would consider kind of a climax forest. It's, you know, trees are bigger. There's much more age diversity, a lot more understory, as well as being topographically diverse. There's a lot of kind of, you know, ledge and little rocky knobs and that kind of thing that create a lot more structural complexity throughout this whole area. This whole southern area is really a phenomenal ecological spot. It's really remarkable for Williston in that it's, you know, it's this older forest. It's got a lot of diversity. It's got these really interesting wetland habitats here. It's got this mix of hemlock and hardwood components. This is a unexpectedly large perennial stream with a very intact buffer, riparian area, floodplain zone. It's aesthetically beautiful and it's ecologically of high value. And so I think that's kind of worth pointing out, that this is really the gem of this from an ecological standpoint. This is really the gem of this property. This northern area has seen more recent, and by more recent I mean kind of agricultural abandonment in probably the 50s and 60s. So it's less developed forest. It's probably been plowed or at least pastured, and so it's the ground surface is much less topographically diverse. There's much less microhabitat and that sort of thing. So jumping back to the recommendations again, the The first thing I'll note is, and you know, how practicality aside, is that I think the more this development encroaches into that sensitive
Okay.
southern area, the more impact it has. And so, you know, in an ideal world, I would try not to have these last three lots. In a, you know, from strictly from an ecological sensitivity perspective. Understanding there's lots more to that discussion, but that's sort of the starting place for me. And that's just because they create that much more of a impact into that interior forest. It creeps human encroachment, sounds, lights, activity, that much further into that sensitive ecological area. Um, Eliminating those altogether, I would look strongly at reducing these lot sizes and these back lots. One thing I noticed was that these 6, 7, and 8 lots looked to be, you know, quite a bit bigger than somewhat bigger than the lots 4 and 5. And I couldn't, with the information I had available, I couldn't see any particular reason that they needed to be that way. The wastewater systems are all contained close to the building envelopes. And so what I'm showing here is about 150 feet less of projection into that interior forest. And so it's something. And so that would be a recommendation, is that to the extent that those lots can be reduced in size, that we get them down to minimize their footprints as they extend in there. And you know, the real reason for that is, you know, the lots themselves don't make a big difference, but the more area that's in that private ownership, the more freedom that any given landowner would have to extend that clearing, extend the kind of the human footprint impact, even if it's not part of their, you know, their home or building envelope itself. So moving to this area here, kind of between lot 3 and lot 4, we've got that stream corridor. There is currently a relatively well-developed roadway that extends along most of this pink area, with the exception that it cuts straight across where this little bubble is. I think this little loop is put in there to avoid a wetland impact. It's a little mysterious to me because the wetland impact has already occurred, and I'm not quite sure what the necessity is there. But regardless, that's part of the plan. And then there's the stream crossing here, and currently there's this is about I think it's about a 4-foot wide stream channel, bank to bank, and there's two 15-inch culverts. And so I don't know if this was developed as an informal woods road and it's just sort of grown over time, or what the history is, but those culverts are certainly insufficient for kind of modern hydraulics, and are very likely to cause problems with that road in the future. But more importantly, for the perspective of this analysis, is that they're way undersized for aquatic organism passage. And so our recommendation would be a single culvert of at least 1.5 bankful width, that's partially buried, so it has a natural bottom, which would allow amphibians, insects, and then also, critters like mink to transit that stream channel without having to go up on the road and be able to move through that area. The other piece of this is that I think it is a good thing that there's no proposed lots in here along the sides of the stream, and that's really a function, I believe, probably of the wetland presence, but it does allow kind of retain some corridor possibility through here. And if you'll remember that pink arrow, that was kind of heading off in this direction up here. And so we're losing a little bit of that with the positioning of lot 3 here, but there's, there's still some room to get through up above that. And if we can maintain some, some decent connectivity here, it's helpful. And so one of the things that I would also recommend, in addition to the culvert upgrade, is keeping an eye on the sort of the corridor conditions on either side of the road there, minimizing the clearing width to the extent keep it as narrow as possible to the road. Don't make this a 2-lane road. Keep it to a 1-lane road if that's an option. And let the forest edge come right up close to the road shoulder rather than making a big wide clearing swath, at least in this area right here. And that will help facilitate wildlife movement through there. It'll make them feel more comfortable as they pass through, this traveled zone. This is a little bit of an aside, but I did note that there's wetland in the back of lot 4 and 5 here, and it wasn't fully delineated in the files that I received, and it appears that there may be some potential for some wetland or buffer impacts from the wastewater system here. Again, this was not the focus of this assessment, so there may be fully aware there may be information that I don't have or I'm not aware of. But I just wanted to make sure it was pointed out that that wetland boundary, which may be here, may be further away, really ought to be formally delineated and mapped, just so we can make sure that there's not any encroachment onto that wetland community. And then finally, it was not clear to me if the conservation of the remaining southern portion of the property is a formal component of the project, or if it's just a possibility at this point. And so, given the ecological sensitivity of that area, I would just strongly recommend that become a component of that property. I think that's a as I mentioned, it's a really rich ecological spot, and I think conservation of that area would be of real benefit to the whole community. And then just a final note about invasive species, that they are present, in particular in the developed area, in particular along edges and existing openings. The most notable one is common buckthorn. And it's just something to keep an eye on as more clearing takes place, that buckthorn will take advantage of that and will grow it. And we're bound to see more of that encroachment into this interior forest down here as well, where currently there's very little once you get down into this area where lots 6, 7, and 8 are. That's something that could be done through, HOA. It could be kind of considered a recommendation, or it could be considered more of a formal invasive species management plan that gets implemented. So I think that's it for my little rundown, and happy to discuss or respond to questions.
That was great, Aaron. Thank you. Very comprehensive. Do we have any questions? Why don't we start with the applicant? Do you have any questions for the biologist?
Well, we're still developing how everything looks. We've already, done some preliminary reevaluations, like where he mentioned behind lot 4.
Okay.
We do have some wetland impacts that we didn't realize before. We've now realized, but we can't do official delineation until I think the middle of May, when the growing season starts.
That sounds right.
So we know there's gonna be some adjustments. It was interesting, like go back to the bobcat slide, and there's obviously a lot of bobcat
Yeah.
areas. I mean, I've lived out here for 40+ years, and my grandparents have been here forever, so I'm very familiar with the history of the area. But if you look at the bobcats, like in our zone, or our land, if you will, there's very few in that large interior he talked about. comparatively. You move up to the corner where our houses are currently by South Road, it's a pretty dense little population. And I can tell you, a lot of them go right across my back lawn on a regular basis. So the bobcats, do they like people? I don't know what it is, but they don't seem to be deterred by the moderate development that we currently have up there. You know, right along South Road. South Road's a relatively busy road. This driveway is designed to be 14-foot wide driveway, 14-foot gravel driveway. So it's pretty narrow. If you assume 2 cars per house, that's not a lot of traffic on a daily basis. And the nature of the road with the twists and turns is gonna, let's call it traffic calming. And so,
It'll be a slow
except for
road.
the teenage kid who's gonna just do whatever he wants, but, I think, you know, certain things he mentioned, decreasing those 2 lot sizes, 7 and 8. Would certainly be open to conversation. The big parcel, our goal, we've submitted a proposal to the town. To work a deal where the town becomes owners of that land. We have to get the density that we're proposing. Do, I think it's 10 acres per lot, roughly, if I remember right. So I mean, we have that motivation, but because I've lived there for years, I have lived in those woods for years. And I have got so much enjoyment from that land. I want the public to have access to it. The town, as David knows, I've given my very few concerns, conditions that I would have for us, you know, selling it. And the conditions are that the public has access to it. That, and this is from my dog judge, he has said he wants to make sure dogs are allowed on the property. So, you know, I think our conditions are very reasonable. But it's, if anybody hasn't walked on it, and I can tell you right now, we have neighbors from all over who use this land and have used it for many years. I think it would benefit from some town organization. 3 weeks ago, I was out in my driveway and one of the environmental engineers who was out rechecking some of the buffer zones, she walked out of the woods and she had this 70-year-old lady with her dog. Stopped and said hi. The lady was super pleasant lady, telling me all about her history. She came up from Lake Iroquois. And I said, well, these woods are big. I said, I'm sure you at least have a cell phone. Oh, no, don't have anything like that. I have a AirTag. Thinking, it's not gonna help much. She had no clue where she was. She stumbled across this lady engineer and she brought her out and then gave her and her dog a ride back down to Lake Iroquois. The elderly lady said, yeah, I've been up there 5 hours. I had no clue where I was. And this was like
Oh, boy.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, this is where just some minimal trail marketing and understanding.
Safety, yeah.
I had 2 ladies this past Sunday I met up in the woods in our new proposed area for building. And they said, this is all public land, right? And I said, oh, no. No, you're a long ways from Lake Iroquois. And we're hoping it will become public and a little more, I use the word organized. I don't want anything dramatic. It's like we have a small trail network. I know like Emily is taking a trip with me on it. David's going to be, we get some decent weather here. But it is just a phenomenal area just to wander through. The variety of trees that Aaron's talking about is amazing back there. We did do very limited logging in the past. It was about 8 years ago. We did our latest amount. We hired a forester. We had a professional timber company come in to do the work. And we made some pretty respectable money over the short winter that year. I asked him to leave the property. I said, I don't ever want you back on this property. He was not doing any favors to the land. That's my level of responsibility with my family's. We want the land used and preserved, we passed up a lot of money by asking him to leave. And then we had planned on somebody else coming in more respectably. We had COVID come along, timber markets went down through the floor. Once the timber came back, fuel prices were so high, it never became economical or feasible to go in and continue logging. There's some beautiful red oak back there, prime stock, but it's still there. And then the last couple, 3 years, we said, we're not gonna do any logging because that's gonna be up to the future generations to decide what's
Management of the-
appropriate.
Yeah.
We didn't want to make that decision for future. That's just how we look at the
Yeah.
land. So I think we're trying to be very respectful.
John, thank you for that. I do want to just jump in with a quick time check. This is your one opportunity to kind of feed any questions to Aaron. So before, just because we're running down on time, if anyone has any questions. Aaron, it was an excellent presentation. I know you covered a lot of ground, so does
Yeah,
anyone?
and I'm fine on time, so whatever you need me
Okay.
for is fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Reed.
Yeah, Aaron, I appreciated your comments about the potential for trail easement along the northern boundary. And seems like there'd be some work required there. And it sounds like, the Marcotte family is interested in making sure that the parcel is accessible. Did you have any, as you were walking the property, did you identify any areas where you're like, this would be a better way to design a trail easement, especially in that northern third?
I think I wasn't out there looking at that specifically.
Yeah.
I think there's probably an option to get between these two wetlands and away from that stream, and then cross with a small footbridge or something down in this area that would certainly be much more feasible and functional and lower impact. And so I think I feel fairly confident there's an option there. I did walk this whole property boundary up here, and I'm much less concerned about these little wetland crossings. Those are, they're right on the edge of kind of this Bear Trap Lane development. They're generally quite narrow little fingers at that point, and I think there's fairly reasonable options for crossing those areas. So I wouldn't put a lot of focus into changes up here. And in fact, as you move to the south, you get into the wider areas of the wetlands anyway. So I think keeping it along there and then looking for an alternative that gets you away from that stream for as much time as possible and then crosses it quickly and continues on would be preferable. And then I'll just mention in the southern conservation area, I think I love the idea of making these types of places publicly accessible, and it comes with concerns about kind of future use and how kind of increasing recreational use can impact those natural areas. And so I think it's just something to be mindful of. I think as time goes on and more people use that, it starts to become considered a recreational area rather than a natural area. Those trail people start biking there. People start, people start looking for, more developed trail systems, hardened paths, which brings yet more people and more disturbance and interruption. And that's all just sort of slow cumulative impacts on a really important and sensitive habitat area.
Hey, I was wondering the same thing, Aaron, about that trail easement. Part of what I was thinking about was, well, is the parcel going to be more suitable for like a through trail kind of situation where there's not like loops and maybe people wandering as much and more like people are going to get a chance to see it, but with as little impact as possible? Or is it more suitable for a series of trails that people could go for a loop or something on? Those are the types of things that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. We are at 9 and I do have a hard stop today, so unless there's a final question for Aaron, I'll thank him for his time. All right, Aaron, thank you very much. That was a great report. and a good presentation, and thank you for the Markotts for being here and
Yeah.
sharing a little bit of that history with us. I think we'll have to close the meeting there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Cindy.
All right,
No problem.
stop the recording and we're adjourned.